From the News Channel 8 studios, let's talk live with your hosts, Natasha Barrett and Melanie Hastings.
All right, let's talk about this, relationships. And the key to having any great relationship is being able to have an honest, effective conversation.
Yep, every relationship, of course, has issues, but issues don't really ruin the relationship. It's unresolved issues that do. We've got communication expert Stephen Gaffney in with us today to explain more. Hey, Stephen.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Okay, what issues do you want to talk about?
Oh, no. I'm just surprised to hear that maybe we can resolve every issue just by talking it out?
Well, most issues we can. In fact, how often have you thought, there's no way? Or what people do is, look, if I say this, they're going to say this, and then they'll say, forget it, I won't have the conversation. Instead of just, you have to have the conversation.
You mean people just don't want to drag it out and get into it, the old stuff?
Absolutely. You know, a friend of mine, Zamira Jones, who's a management consultant, he says it best. He said, what's hard to do in life makes things ultimately easier. What's easy to do in life often makes our life harder. In other words, sometimes we avoid the stuff and we say we're going to take the easy way out. I'm just not going to bring it up. It's going to hurt their feelings or it won't work well. But that makes our life a lot more difficult because we keep avoiding the issues that we need to talk about.
That's deep.
Because it's painful. It's painful.
11 a.m. he just went really deep on
He
us.
sure did.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah, because the big problem is not what people say, it's actually what they're not saying to each other. And you got to get that unsaid said. So one of the first keys to doing that is to actually just listen. You know, so often somebody will come to me and I do all this coaching and they'll say, all right, I got to say this, this, and this. And I say, wait a minute, why don't you just first ask some questions and check in and listen? Although I got to tell you, this guy came to me in a seminar, he said, you know, my teenage daughter doesn't listen to me. Will you teach me how to do that? And I said, well, I have a question. If I asked your teenage daughter, does she think that you listen, what would she say? And he said, she would probably say that I don't really listen. I said, let me make this perfectly clear. She's unlikely to ever listen to you until you first listen to her.
Right.
But you know what the response back was? Well, she started it.
Oh, that's funny.
Perfect.
Well, that's, you know, that's kind of a typical parent and child relationship, right?
Absolutely. But if you think about it, like Larry King said it best, you know, he never learned anything when he was talking. How we learn is actually by listening. But we get so afraid to ask those questions, but we've got to ask those questions. So the first key is to really just listen.
Well, why do people have a hard time doing it? People want to be heard?
Yeah, they're usually thinking in a difficult conversation, all right, I want to say this, this, and this, so they're in the transmit mode rather than the listening mode. But here's the interesting thing. It's actually easier to listen than to worry about what you want to cover. So often people are real nervous because I got to cover this, got to cover this, got to cover this.
I want to get my point in, I want to say this, I want to get this point across.
Yeah, in fact, and the key is to just really listen. Here's something that can really help you, and it might be another profound one, I don't know, but assume that whatever somebody tells you is not the full story. Assume that whatever somebody says, there's more to the story. And the reason why that's important is because when you're in a conversation, so often people will react. I can't believe they said that, or that's wrong. So they interrupt the person. And then when you interrupt, the other person thinks, see, they're not listening, and they shut down. If you assume that it's probably not the cap off the toothpaste, it probably isn't that I didn't call them and let them know exactly where I was, probably the real issue is trust or something along those lines, then we can actually just, we don't get all caught up in initially what they're saying, and we're going to ask better questions.
Should we bring that up to the person? If we're talking about friends here, you know, when it's your husband or your wife, maybe it's a little easier to talk about, hey, listen to me, that kind of thing. Yeah. But when it's a friend, sometimes it's different depending on what kind of friend it is. So should you bring that up to a friend that isn't a listener?
Well, here's the thing. If you don't talk about it, if we don't have a discussion, it's never going to get resolved. Here's another interesting thing I found out. Time deepens wounds and deepens relationships. You know, people always say, well, time will heal all wounds. But how often has somebody brought up something that you thought they were over with and they were never over with it? So often people will say, after that initial friction, well, I'm just not going to talk about it. And they think it goes away and actually feels better. But all it takes is for that other person to do something that makes us reminded of what they did, and we're right back in being upset. So the key is we have to talk about it, and that's really how we have great relationships. You know what worries me is when people say, I don't have any issues. They're the ones that worry us, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Have you ever had a couple say, listen, we don't have any issues.
We never fight.
Yeah, we're great. And then next week, yeah, we're getting a divorce.
Oh, my gosh.
It's that one couple, right?
Well, what if you are, you want to bring up something, but then you're afraid of the reaction you might get?
Yeah, great question. So one of the key strategies is this combo of purpose and concerns. Purpose is the reason why you want to bring up something. Concerns are the reasons why you don't. So purpose often it might look like, I want to talk to you about how we could work better together or have a better relationship. So you begin with the goal not the problem, right? Because if somebody says to you, listen, I want to talk to you about all the issues we're having. Well, let me carve out some time on that. That's going to be great. And so we don't tend to want to do that, but if they begin with the purpose, we're more willing to hear them out. Then here's the other interesting thing. Share concerns, because the more we share our worries and concerns, the less likely they are to happen. So in other words, if you say to somebody, I'm concerned you're going to get defensive, what's interesting is most people will say to themselves, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Which actually helps, because then they won't get defensive. Now, I know some people push back and say, you don't understand this person. If I say, I'm concerned you're going to get defensive, they're going to say, what do you mean? But then you can say, that's exactly what I mean. I don't know how to talk to you without you getting upset. And perhaps that's the real conversation we need to have. But either way, getting out those concerns makes us feel better and actually helps direct the conversation.
Harder up front, easier down the line. Steve Gaffney, good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.